Hey everybody, got another one for you. Look, it doesn't matter if I'm in the ER, if I'm taking care of people in the ER, or if I'm doing some sort of procedure like a biopsy or removing lung fluid from the body. I'm starting to see, and this isn't just around here, this is across the United States and some other developing countries. We're seeing a huge increase in obesity, in heart failure, in congestive heart failure. We're seeing an increase in cognitive impairment, meaning the lack of mental clarity, the IQ. People are slower to think. We have more psychiatric disorders. We just saw in the news locally, if you're around here, what happened the other night. The crazy ass people on the news shooting each other up. And then we're also seeing breast impairments, meaning we're seeing increased breast cancer rates, as well as cystic thickening of breast tissue. And then we are also seeing a different array of cancers. Now, what do all these have in common? Iodine and iodine deficiency, and nobody's talking about it because it's flying underneath the radar because there's other more important topics going on that are more exciting. Okay, iodine isn't exciting, but it is arguably one of the most important things to ever reach our body. And nature has a really weird way of going about things. Some things that are so toxic to us are needed in such small amounts, and that's what keeps us healthy. So speaking of iodine, we do have to keep in mind that less is more, and too much of a good thing, can be bad as well. So let's jump right into it. Something that's really cool about iodine, it was discovered back in, I believe, 1811, someone fact check me if I'm wrong, and there's some scientists were actually using what? Seaweed, which is one of the biggest sources of iodine, floats in short water, grows rapidly, and it contains massive amounts of iodine and some other nutrients and minerals, or vitamins and minerals as well. So, with that said, the iodine that's found in the kelp, they were using it to make gunpowder with, and then they realized that it could snap right from the solid state, its natural form, into a gas. It totally bypasses that middle state, which we can compare it to water. It follows the ice, then it follows the liquid form, then it follows the gas, the vapor. And iodine, like I just said, totally can bypass that middle state. So it's pretty cool in its natural state and its ability to skip out on that middle step. So scientists didn't even know what it was, so they named it iodine 2 years later, and it's about the time that they started treating people with goiters for it, and they realized that people's goiters were being remedied by putting iodine into their body. So they put two and two together and started realizing even further that it's a huge prophylactic for the body, meaning that it's a huge protectant in all of the body systems. And now we know, now that we can look into things with a microscope and we can really put depth into our research, that it really has a major effect on almost every single system in the body. And that is because our thyroid can only absorb iodine. It's the only tissue. However, iodine can be stored in different tissues. I mean, even the smallest glands in our eyes, the lacrimal glands right here, our tear ducts, our brain, there's some organs in our body. I could go into depth in that, but I'm not going to. And it's cool because the thyroid is the only one that can actually use it instead of store it, because it's going to take it and it's going to make its own hormones, T3 and T4, there's some other different ones, and then in turn, those hormones are going to go to every other organ in the body and be used in every single cell in the body with the hormones that are made, not the T3 and T4 specifically, but all the other hormones that are influenced by the thyroid. So pretty important stuff, knowing that almost every single system is used with iodine. So what are some things, and how does our body tell us that we're deficient in iodine, right? Because we need to be able to listen to our body. If we're starting to develop nodules around the thyroid, we can get an ultrasound, or sometimes we can feel them. If we get drastic peaks and valleys in emotions, if we get drastic change of emotions too, not just the huge ups and downs, but the quick mood swings, if we get the loss of mental clarity, the inability to think correctly, if we get a decrease in immunity response, those are huge tips. Women, if we start to get the fibric or the cystic breasts, that's another huge indicator that we're deficient in iodine. Also speaking to women, if we have ovarian cyst, polycystic ovarian syndrome, if we get uterine fibroids. These are all almost certain indicators that you are deficient in iodine. So we're not getting it, especially inland, especially in Metro Detroit, we're not getting as much iodine as we should. It's usually more available, naturally, bioavailable, not through a medication, because as I just said, it doesn't work correctly in our body. It's more prevalent on the coastlines where there's kelp and different types of seaweeds. We're eating sushi, we're eating shrimp, we're eating scallops. But even those seafoods themselves do not have anywhere near the concentration iodine needed as the seaweed vegetables. Something else I see almost daily is women with breast disorders. As I mentioned a couple minutes earlier, the fibrocystic breasts. We have the uterine fibroids. Women, if you're breastfeeding, the tissue responsible for milk production is absolutely needed. The amount of iodine needed for the breasts is absolutely critical to your breast health. And a lack of it can also, hate to say it, produce what's the worst disease, guys? Cancer. And we know that prevention is always the best protection. So let's start getting iodine in our body regularly. Also, there's an affinity, meaning that there's a natural driver, a natural want for iodine in the uterus and the prostate. And so that just also tells us that iodine is needed for men and women's health. So people who have had breast cancer, it actually, just by taking iodine alone, it actually helps reduce or increase some cofactors related to breast cancer that inhibit the growth and actually induce what's called apoptosis, or programmed cell death. That is one of the major differences in a healthy cell and a cancer cell. A cancer cell does not die, and it keeps replicating that bad, whatever you want to call it, bad expression of DNA, and a healthy cell is programmed. It's engineered. One of the biggest things and one of the biggest disconnects that I see within the hospital scene is that iodine is a direct cofactor to insulin. And we all know a diabetic in our family, or if, someone in our community, a neighbor, we all know a diabetic now. I mean, most of us are obese and have diabetic tendencies in our body, or now we're saying pre-diabetic, even if we're not close to being diabetic and being treated. But in any case, guys, in studies done by some of the top iodine remedy researchers, people have come to the realization that it increases the insulin sensitivity and allows it to drive the sugar into our cells. So we're actually using up that sugar. It's not staying in our blood. So we're going to need less insulin. Again, another medication. And because of that, we're going to see a decrease in our blood sugar. How great is that? And from the people who were just taking 50 to 100 micrograms a day, which isn't that much, they are, more than half those people in that study were actually being able to take off their medications for the diabetes altogether. So who wouldn't you know that wouldn't like to be off their medications for diabetes? Because we all see the long-term effect of diabetes. And I don't want you guys ever to experience these things, but maybe you do know somebody who's had the cold feet. That's another symptom of iodine deficiency, is the cold feet and hands. It's a circulation problem. But we all see the diabetics who have to have the amputations. We see the blindness. We see the discolored skin, the scaling, the oozing. I mean, diabetes just wreaks havoc on tissue. Now, as important as everything I just said is about the thyroid is actually controlled by the pineal gland. It's a little peanut-sized gland in the brain, and it's known as the master gland. Okay, the pineal gland is going to produce things like TSH, known as thyroid stimulating gland, some other things that are really important for growth, some other hormones. So what occurs is when we don't have enough iodine, it's a problem because that TSH, that thyroid stimulating hormone, is still being produced by our brain. It's being sent around to our body, trying to work with iodine to have the thyroid make its own hormones that are needed, because those subsequent hormones after that are used in every single cell in the body, like I just said. So you can see where there's a problem when there's no iodine. It's even worse when we have iodine displacers. We have fluoride and we have bromine. The bromine is in all our processed foods, all our white rice, all our white breads, and then the fluoride is in our drinking water, and that also displaces the chemicals needed in our thyroid. So you can see how quickly this scales and how complex it can get, and you can see how when one thing doesn't work and when the other thing is trying to work for the thyroid, everything else after it starts breaking down. So our body is super intelligent. It's going to try to make up for it, but oftentimes we can't. So we're going to get hyperthyroidism and we're going to get hypothyroidism. Now, typically, we're going to get prescribed something called Synthroid or another generic name, and that is usually used to try to remedy the hyper or hypothyroidism. The problem with that is it's innately dead. Okay, so by the time it gets used by the thyroid, it just sits there. It's dead. It doesn't really work well. So again, we're tricking the body thinking that everything is okay because we're locking that chemical into the binding site in the thyroid. So we're tricking the brain and thinking, and the thyroid and thinking that something is there when it's really not working. So everything else in the body is trying to work as normal instead of sending alert signals to our brain and other parts of our body to try to help respond. And so you can see how we get this trickle-down effect of negative impacts in the body. So I know I talked about Synthroid, the medication, before, but I just got to jump into it one last time because it's super important. Guys, it is a synthetic molecule and it's inactive, which means it's basically dead on arrival. Especially Synthroid specifically has that dead or inactive synthetic chemical of T4. So, like I just said, it's dead on arrival. So it's completely not working for our body, even if it technically can work, but you also need a super well working liver and gallbladder already to help activate it. But if we're already deficient in iodine, we're probably suffering in all of our body systems already. So our liver and our gallbladder probably aren't functioning super correctly, definitely not well enough to help induce that, that chemical process needed to stimulate that fake Synthroid into the thyroid and make it work. So even if we're taking selenium, which is a super, super important trace mineral, on top of the medication, the Synthroid, even if we're taking the two together, what our current healthcare model is to bombard it with this fake chemical and induce it, but it's actually just not doing us much good, and it leaves the thyroid broken. Now instead, what we should do is help to heal the thyroid, get it jump-started, right? So that way it can naturally produce its own hormones, which then in turn are used to produce other hormones that are used in every cell in the body. And that can only be used by what? Food, guys. Food-based iodine that's bioavailable. You can't beat nature sometimes, especially when we're talking about things such as iodine. We don't need much, but it's absolutely critical for our health. So, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. I hope you guys learned something here. I love teaching people about the thyroid and iodine. It's super important, and it's a huge, almost an umbrella nutrient that we need because it ties into almost every single body system, and all we're doing is masking what's wrong, trying to put something fake into it, and try to, like I mentioned in other videos, we're trying to manifest, we're trying to force an effect on the body, and we simply just need to be putting things into our body that our body knows what to do with, that'll help heal the body, help jumpstart its own, and produce its own hormones. So in any case, hope you guys are being safe, hope you guys are returning, grabbing hold of your own health, becoming your own doctors. So what I love to see more than anything is you guys taking information and making it actionable, using it, and telling your friends, telling your family, getting them healthy, keeping them out of the hospital. Don't want to end up CAT scanning you because you have a problem and it's related to something so simple, guys, so simple. One nutrient, and we just talked about all the beautiful ways that it can help heal the body and all the systems that it can help heal. So I'm going to get out of here for the night. Hope you guys learned something, and let me know what you guys think. Drop some comments. Let me know what you guys want me to talk about, and yeah, stay healthy. And as always, protect yourselves, protect yourselves. Have a good night, y'all.